What's up, y'all? Welcome to D's Pod and the D Talks podcast, where simply put, D, me, talks. Now, I've been wanting to make a podcast for a while, but I kept on putting it off for various reasons that we'll go more in depth into in today's episode. But just especially recently, I've been really feeling that pull from God to make this happen, because again, it's something that I've wanted to do for a while. But I just didn't do it until right now. So here I am with the pilot episode, the Detox podcast, D's Pod. We're gonna get things on and cracking. But I like to start off my episodes with a little question, right? And sometimes the question will pertain to the topic, sometimes it won't. Today's will, since it is a pilot episode, and I want y'all to kind of think before I get into the meat and taters, what I got to say. But today's question is, what's stopping you? Right? What's stopping you? And really think about this. Sorry, I'm chewing gum. I shouldn't be chewing gum, but this is going to be one take. I'm not making any edits, any cuts. I'm going to cut the start, the finish, and call it a day. But, really, what's stopping you? What's stopping you from going to the gym? What's stopping you from going back to church? What's stopping you from reaching out to that friend, that family member? What's stopping you from applying to those jobs? What's stopping you from making that podcast, right? What's stopping you? To answer the question for myself, and I'm sure for a lot of you, the one thing that's stopping you 100% of the time, I'm going to say 100 because I know this to be true. 100% of the time is you, ourselves. We stop ourselves from making things happen. We stop ourselves from stepping outside of our comfort zone, the confines of whatever boundaries we've created for ourselves, and doing things to get us to where we want to be in life, right? We say, school sucks, so, or I don't want to work for the man, whatever reason you have, so we don't go to school. We hear people talk down on school. We don't go to school, but we stick around and do nothing with our time, right? We say, religion is this, that, and the third, false prophets everywhere. I don't know who to trust. So we don't go to church. We don't read our word. We don't ask questions. And if you feel attacked, if the boot fits, for one, and for two, this is me kind of going through some of the thought processes that I've had for myself. And so these aren't baseless. These aren't, me just spewing stuff. This is all experience, all D's experiences, what he's experienced. But yeah, the biggest thing stopping us, the biggest obstacle, hindrance, whatever you want to put, instead of you, is you. The biggest you stopping you is you. Because in all actuality, you could really do anything you set your mind to, right? And I found this out kind of my freshman year of college, because growing up, I was always a bigger boy, for all those who don't know. In middle school, high school, I was pretty chunky. And for a while, I thought that, weight loss was impossible. I thought, I was given these confines, these circumstances, and I couldn't really get out of them. I'd see all these weight loss stories and stuff happen. I tried diets, nothing would work out. I'll get into all this later on, because this is also something that I got a piece on, is the whole dieting thing. But anyways, where was I going with that? Right. So early adulthood, I said I was going to lose weight. Nothing's stopping me now. I'm outside my parents' house. I'm fully in control of what I'm consuming, my time, outside of class. I can go to the gym. It's a walk, so I don't got to drive, waste gas, nothing like that. And so I made it happen. And I believe freshman year, I dropped, I want to say 35 pounds, 30 to 35 pounds, something in that bracket. But after that, I was like, okay, life really is what you make it. Right? I can really do this. I can make some shake. And since then, that's kind of been my mentality when it goes to doing things. Now, it took a while for it to translate into, other fields, other realms, aspects of my life, but it did get there at one point, right? And I'm still working on it now. I'm not perfect. But moving on, I want to talk about probably the biggest thing that's causing us to stop ourselves, and that's fear. Fear is an individual created construct. And once we can at least acknowledge that, then we can start making progress. Because the first step really to making any kind of change is acknowledgement, right? You look at stuff like Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step is acceptance, right? That's acknowledging you have a problem and accepting that, it is a problem. Because once you could do that, you could say, okay, I need to fix this. And then you can make that change. But what do I mean by this? Fear is made up. It's not real. You're creating these scenarios that oftentimes worst case, and even if not worst case, they're just all bad, right? And you're scared of these scenarios that don't exist and a lot of the times will never exist, right? How I see it is, you sit to the dinner table, you got your fork, you got your knife, you got your plate. You're sticking your fork in the plate and then you're making the cutting motion with your knife. But there's nothing on the plate. You're envisioning this nice medium rare steak on your plate, but you're cutting air, right? Same thing with fear. You're envisioning this out of pocket, super extraneous scenario, and you're scared of the air. There's nothing there. You're scared of absolutely nothing, right? These intangible, fake circumstances that we create for ourselves to stop us from going out of our comfort zone, right? And so, yeah, just remember, fear is not real. It's not there. A lot of acronyms out there. False evidence appearing real. I don't know any others. That was kind of just the biggest one. I think that was from like the movie I Am Legend. No, I'm tripping. No, dang. I think it was After Us. Whatever movie had Will Smith and Jaden Smith, and they were like on some alien planet or something like that. Will was like, Jaden, remember, fear's fake. False evidence appearing real. Something like that. It's been a minute. I remember that movie got really bad reviews though, so maybe that's why my mind kind of offloaded it, because it wanted to save space for valuable information. But yes, when it comes to fear, one of the biggest things we fear is judgment from our peers. That's a bar, by the way. That was completely on accident. It's not even how it was written in my notes. But we're fearful of how others will perceive and take us taking these actions, right? We're scared that, someone's going to come across the podcast, someone that we know, and they're going to think, oh, what's he doing? What was he thinking? This is stupid. This doesn't make sense. It's all baseless, idiot, right? And yeah, that's just one of those scenarios that fear wants to create for us to stop us from making something shake. And kind of what I've learned in my adulthood and from, kind of having experience being a former envier is all of this is rooted in envy. And envy has roots of its own, because how I see it is like this. People either care or they don't care, right? And if people care and they're supportive, that's great. That's what you want. They'll leave a comment, they'll like it, they may even share it. They may message you, say, hey, I really, resonated with what you said. Good on you, doing your thing for real. I've had people do that with some of my shorts that I've made on my little Instagram page. And then there will be people that care and hate. And those are the enviers. And those are the ones that you definitely don't want to pay any kind of mind to. Because again, understanding human nature, being a former envier myself, all envy is rooted in insecurity, right? Because if someone is straight in themselves, they have self-esteem, they know their life's going places, they're doing stuff, they're, on a positive trajectory, right? they have no reason to hate. They have no space for it, no time. They're on to bigger and better things, right? And if anything, if they do come across your page or whatever your art is, whatever your thing is that you're not doing because of fear, when they see you stepping out, there's a bit of empathy there because they had to step out and do something at one point themselves. And so they understand, which is great. But if there's envy, if there's any kind of judgment that's not constructive criticism, and you'll know, put your ego aside, really sit back, think about the comments, you'll know if it's actual criticism that's constructive or if it's just baseless judgment. And if that's the case, then they're just envious, They're not doing much with themselves. And so because of that, they're kind of projecting their insecurities, projecting their shame, their guilt in themselves onto you for you actually making something of yourself. And so if that's the case, you definitely don't want to, kind of take those voices, those opinions to heart. If anything, just know that those people need a lot more help than you do, right? And so separate yourself from the negative crowd, negativity. You could read it, but just know where that envy is rooted, right? And kind of find peace in knowing that. But yes. Next point here. Or I guess I can kind of expand on the envy thing. I'm speaking again from experience because for a while growing up, I'd see people, on social media, they have these jobs, they're doing stuff with their lives, they're graduating. And this was back when I first came back to Killeen in 2018 after my first year at UH. And I'm going to be honest, coming back to Killeen, it felt like I was taking a bunch of steps back. And it hurt my pride a lot because I'd see these people that, I went to UH with that maybe I wasn't friends with or didn't know like that, but they're, just doing stuff with their lives. And instead of being happy for them, I felt like a bitterness in me. And I was like, why do I feel bitter? They're doing great things with their life. They're, moving on, moving upward. And I found out it's because I felt like I was taking those steps back. Coming back to CTC, coming back to Killeen after being in Houston for a year, of all places, I was like, okay, this sucks. I'm back in the K. I was talking all this mess about leaving Killeen. Here I am back in Killeen again. And then, here I am back in Killeen after I graduate, but different circumstances now. I have a timeline here in Killeen and I have a plan as well. But before, didn't have a plan. Didn't know what I wanted to do. What I wanted to study, where I wanted to go for college after CTC, or even what I was going to study when I was at CTC. And so kind of having all those negative feelings, I found that rooted the envy that I had for others. And it took me kind of sitting down with myself being like, okay, what we got to be bitter about, right? For me to really take a step back and make a change in my perspective, really take a step back and say, okay, I have literally no reason to feel these mal feelings for other people. They're doing great things. I should be happy for them. I should be supporting them. And so that's what I'm going to do, because all about perspective. Again, I got a piece for that later on. I got a lot of pieces, y'all. I'm telling you. Tune in. Stay tuned to the podcast. Stay tuned to the cast. But anyways, how do you combat this fear? One thing is you show up anyways. Right. Now, this is something that we should have learned in our childhood. I did not because I was a runner. I was a track star. Whenever I was matched with any kind of adversity, any kind of difficult situation, my first instinct was to run, get out, like the Jordan Peele movie. Right. I didn't want to be there for it. I didn't want to deal with the emotion. So I just run and I go to my crutches. Not actual crutches, stuff like, playing games, social media, or the P word that I'm not going to say this early in the podcast. But I just avoid it. I run all the time. And but what I didn't realize was in running, you don't go forward. Because if you come up against a hurdle, a hill, a speed bump, and you run, the only way you're running is backwards, right? You got to climb the hill to get to the other side. Because if you don't climb, you can only go sideways, which is where you be stagnant, or you go backwards, which is where you move backwards, right? And so I didn't realize that wasn't really making any progress in my life whenever I did run. And so in my adulthood, I had to kind of come to terms with the fact that, hey, you're going to feel nervous. You're going to feel, any kind of way doing anything, especially anything outside of the norm. So feel those emotions, kind of go through the processing why you feel this way, and show up anyways. Go make it happen. So there's a quote in Top Gun. For all those who don't know, Top Gun's my favorite movie of all time. Again, I got a piece for Top Gun as well. But it's Charlie, which is the love interest. This is the first one, by the way, not the new one. So the blonde girl, right? She's talking to Maverick, who is Tom Cruise, and they're in like some media room going over film, right, of what they were doing, their flights and stuff. And she was like, when you were up there, that maneuver you did, why'd you do that? It was dangerous. You didn't think. Or she was like, it's almost like you didn't think. And Maverick said something along the lines of, when you think up there, you're dead. So you don't think, just do, right? And so same thing here. If you think up there, you're dead. If you think too much on kind of the fear and these scenarios that can go wrong, you're dead. Your dream's dead. Whatever you were setting out to do is dead. Because now you're more focused on what can go wrong instead of how you can go about navigating, being in the scenario itself. Because what if things go right? Again, what if people are supportive, right? And so show up anyways. Don't think, just do. And the second way that I've kind of combat this is finding identity in Christ. So growing in my relationship with Christ, especially in the past 2 years, I found that it's a lot easier to kind of navigate through life and do things just because I know that there's bigger forces that are supporting me, And one thing, my favorite quote or my favorite verse in the Bible is 1 John 4:4, because hold on, dang, I forgot it on the spot because I'm getting shaky. No, I'm just playing. 1 John 4:4, it's talking about false prophets in 1 John 4 and how, they're scattered around the world and stuff. But the second part of 1 John 4:4 says, greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. And so anytime I'm feeling any kind of nerves before I jump into anything, I'll repeat that verse in my head. So when I'm in jiu-jitsu, I'm rolling, we're 4 rows in, 4 rows deep, and we're about to go again, and I'm tired. And then one of the black belts calls me up. I'm like, greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world. I still get crushed, but I'm not down about it because I'm learning, and then those moves I'll use on other people. So yeah, just remember there's a greater force up there that's helping you fight. He's giving you that strength. Greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. And so also take that to mean, outside opinions. Greater is he who is in me, that opinion, his opinion, in me, in D. That's the one that should matter the most. Obviously, you're human. You're going to hear these things in life, and then it's going to affect you, how it'll affect you. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, okay, I'm just making sure I didn't run out of time. Dang, you're 19 minutes deep. All right, anyways, I digress. You have to remember that greater is he in you than he who is in the world. That opinion is greater than these ones, right? These are fleeting opinions. And ultimately, you decide how you feel about these opinions, because nobody's holding a gun to your head saying, hey, he just said this about you. Feel sad, You're holding the gun to your own head. Again, what's stopping you? What's stopping you? But yes, greater is he who is in me. Find that identity in Christ and run with it, attach to it. And then remember, the haters, it's all envy. And so they got the problem. But yes, looking at my notes, I got like all my podcasts in a single spreadsheet, which is not smart because I'm scared I'll overlap notes. But anyways, that's all I have for today. That's all I have for the podcast, the pilot podcast, the pilot cast, pilot pod. This is the pilot pod, and I talked about Top Gun. That's a bar. I did that on accident, by the way. But yes, show up anyways. Know your true identity, and don't take too hardly the envy, right? So I'll end the podcast by asking the question that I asked earlier today. What's stopping you? Now that we've talked about everything, what's still stopping you? This is your prophetic word to make something happen. Go and do whatever it is you're trying to do, so long as it's legal and appropriate, as I like to say. But yeah, what's stopping you? And that's all we have for the pod today. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'll see y'all next week. I want to do an episode every week. I'm saying this out loud for accountability, but yes. So not I want to. I'm going to do an episode every week. But have a good rest of your week. Drink water. Stay hydrated. Stay cool. And yeah, that's it.